Yeah. Yeah, I was there. I had dinner with Denise.
So, yes, Brock was there. Oh my God, Brock was there. Well, I know we're gonna get it again. Yeah. It's gonna be pretty warm right through January.
It's supposed to like rain for the next 7 days or something like
Won't be able to walk in my yard, stay wet in the
that. Especially with the snow.
My little dog's gonna be like, hi, I'm walking.
Yeah.
8 pounds of carrots. Far from it.
Yeah.
So he really makes fun of it, and he's like, nope.
7 o'clock, so time to call the January 7th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting to order. Ms. Colt, call the roll.
Ms. Valentine? Here. Mr. Stephen Greenwood? Here. Ms. Jane Rhodes? Here. Mr. Don Wagner?
Yeah.
Chairman Hunt?
Here. Thank you very much. Next item up is number 3, review and adoption of the meeting agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? And if so, do we have any changes? And if not, we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Got a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second? Got a motion properly seconded. All in favor of approving the meeting agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all very much. At this time, we'll be reviewing the minutes. We've got 6 different work sessions and regular meeting minutes. What I'd like to do is go through each of the minutes and make any changes we have, and then have an approval at the end, if that's okay with everyone.
Mr.
So do we have any changes to the October 29th?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I do want to note, I do not believe we have the December 12th minutes. Or we do.
We did.
It's only on one agenda, it was not included in the packet, it's
Okay.
not included for tonight.
Those minutes aren't complete.
All right, going back to the October 29th work session minutes. Do we have any changes to those minutes? No. All right, I've got something for the November 6th meeting. Does anyone else have anything for the November 6th meeting? Anybody? Well, actually, I think the change I had was the date bottom, which I think already your staff, so we're good with that. The November 12th minutes, does anyone have any changes? All right, and then finally, the December 3rd regular meeting, does anyone have any changes?
November 19th? That was the 19th.
I'm sorry, November 19th. Any changes, additions? And then finally, December 3rd, see, I was anticipating this, that there would be no changes, so that's why I skipped over.
I do to the December 3rd.
Okay,
At the very end, when the motion was made, the vote was not unanimous on the decision. So as you see, there were, the motion was carried, but it was not unanimous. It was by a majority vote. So I would propose to amend to state that the vote to table CUP-03-19 carried.
oh, what are you proposing again?
I'm sorry?
Can you repeat that?
Yes. So the last sentence, which says the vote was unanimous on this motion, to revise it to state that the vote to table CUP-03-19 carried.
Last page, page 3
Page
of
3 of
5.
5. I'm sorry. Yeah, where the motion was. Yep, sorry about that. Yeah. Do you see the last portion?
Right, no, yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So we're gonna say what's into the minutes?
The vote to table CUP -03-19 carried.
So the vote to table carried 3-2, as opposed to unanimous, that's correct, okay?
Yes.
Anything else? All right, at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the October 29th, November 6th, November 12th, November 19th minutes with no changes, the December 3rd meeting with the one amendment offered by Ms. Rose. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
A motion to approve the minutes, any seconds? Got a motion properly seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented or amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all very much. Okay, at this time, we're up to the public comment period. Typically, with public comment periods, you can speak up to 3 minutes as an individual or 5 minutes if you represent a group on any planning matter for which we do not have a public hearing. We do not have any public hearing meetings tonight, there will be public hearings tonight, therefore, any planning topic y'all would like to discuss, whether it's on the agenda or not, you're welcome to do. So again, you have 3 minutes. When you come up, please state your name in either your address or the district you're in. At this time, I'm opening up the public comment period.
My name is Tom Gresh. I live at 160 Wood Lane here in Halet. I live in District 4. I'm here to support David Chanel in his decision on this solar farm. I think he's owned land for over 80 years. I knew his father. I've known David. He's putting this thing in the backfield and in the front where no one can see it, so I don't see how it would actually affect anybody's property value. It's nothing but farmland all the way around that. A cornfield, a bean field isn't going to make any difference whether there's a solar panel next to it or not. I'm getting rather irritated with the state, the way it's telling us what we can do and what we can't do. We've got gun control coming up that nobody in the whole state wants. Now we're telling a man in this county that he can't make some extra money to keep his farm alive because the government sets the corn price so low that they can afford ethanol. We don't even need ethanol. We're exporting oil now. And I'm just getting tired of government telling me what I can and what I can't do. I think David Chanel ought to be able to sell and put this farm in, and with that money generated from it, he'd at least be able to retain his farm. The only thing that I'm concerned with is the literature that I've read, is once these things have reached their lifespan, there's no place to go with them. You can't just put them in a landfill. So whoever writes up the regulations for this county, they need to make, when these things are ending their life, they need to be dumped on Ralph Northman's front yard. That's all I have to say.
Would anyone else like to speak on any planning matter tonight? Because if not, I'll close the public comment period. Anyone else? Okay. At this time, I'll close the public comment period. And the next item up for business is old business number 6, item A, conditional use permit 03-19 Sweet Sioux Solar LLC. Mr. Batter.
propose to do, since this is a continuation from the last regular meeting, the public comment period, for your consideration tonight, we have CUP 03-19 for the Sweet Sioux Solar Facility. This conditional use permit, again, is for the installation of a 77 megawatt new solar photovoltaic generation facility. The parcels are listed here in your memo, and this, the future land use map and the comprehensive plan shows this as rural land use for the property. The property is located in Macon Fourth Voting District. As it exists, it's agricultural and residential land. There's homes, farm structures. The proposed use is for a solar power station. Proposed structures will be the infrastructure, including panels, mounts, wiring, and fencing. In your packet, we included the application and the presentation from Invenergy, site plans, ordinances, public comments, and the solar permit by rule guidance documents for review. All public notices have been sent and duly advertised for the project. No deed restrictions barring the proposed use of the property exist. And the application and preliminary site plans appear to be in general compliance with the requirements for obtaining a conditional use permit. As you can see, as you have seen by the GIS maps and site plan maps that have been provided for the site, most of the parcels surrounding the proposed project site are large parcels, heavily wooded fields, and therefore provide adequate buffer zones for the project site. Excuse me. The applicant's report contains measures to preserve and augment the natural buffer of the project site. Again, we've gone through the conditional use permit, provided some analysis to the board on September 28th. The Board of Supervisors in 2015, I apologize. The Board of Supervisors adopted a zoning ordinance text amendment which permits solar power stations by conditional use permit. The designation to use a conditional use in the zoning district means it may not be appropriate in all cases, depending upon whether conditional use permit conditions can be met. The application requirements of Section 86-456G have been met. Section 86-452 of the zoning ordinance states conditional use should be approved if it is found that the location is appropriate, not in conflict with the comprehensive plan. The parcels involved are zoned AC and designated rural in the 2016 future land use map of the comprehensive plan. Number two, the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare will not be adversely affected. The application appears to address potential impacts to the public. Necessary safeguards will be provided for the protection of surrounding property, persons, and the neighborhood values. The conceptual layout depicts the location of solar panels in relation to adjacent properties. The proposed solar project appears to meet the site plan requirements. The Planning Commission may recommend reasonable conditions to the Board of Supervisors as it believes necessary to accomplish the objectives of this chapter. Staff recommends, if approved, the following conditions. The applicant shall meet the development standards listed below. Location standards for utility scale solar facilities. The location standards stated below for utility scale solar facilities are intended to mitigate the adverse effects of such uses on adjoining property owners, the area, and the county. The minimum area of utility scale facilities shall be no less than 2 acres, and the maximum area shall be no greater than 1,500 acres. The equipment, improvement, structures, and percent of acreage covered by the facility footprint of a utility scale solar facility shall be shown on the approved concept plan and site plan. The percent of acreage coverage shall not exceed 65%. The facility footprint is defined as the fenced area encompassing all solar facilities, including ground-mounted solar panels, inverters, and the project substation. It will provide an inventory of all utility-scale solar facilities existing or proposed within a 4-mile radius. A utility-scale solar facility shall be constructed and maintained in substantial compliance with the approved concept plan. Minimum setback to residential dwellings existing at the time of the conditional use permit approval shall be 400 feet. The minimum setback to all other property lines shall be 100 feet. The maximum height of the lowest edge of the photovoltaic panel shall be 10 feet as measured from the finished grade. The maximum height of primary structures and accessory buildings shall be 15 feet as measured from the finished grade at the base of the structure to its highest point, including future instances. The Board of Supervisors may approve a greater height based upon the demonstration of a significant need where the impacts of increased height are mitigated. The facilities, including fencing, shall be significantly screened from the ground level view of adjacent properties by a buffer zone of at least 100 feet wide that shall include a minimum 12 feet wide portion be landscaped with plant materials consisting of an evergreen and deciduous mix as approved by the zoning administrator, except to the extent that existing vegetation or natural landforms on the site provide such screening as determined by the zoning administrator. Following completion of construction activities and during operation of the facility, if the existing vegetation or landforms which provide the screening are disturbed, new plantings shall be provided which accomplish the same within 30 days of discovery. Opaque architectural fencing may be used to supplement other screening methods which shall not be the primary method. The facility shall be enclosed by security fencing on the interior of the buffer area, not to be seen by other properties, not less than 7 feet in height, inclusive of 1 foot of razor barbed wire on top of the security fencing as appropriate. A performance bond reflecting the cost of anticipated fence maintenance shall be posted and maintained. Failure to maintain the security fencing shall result in revocation of the conditional use permit and the facility's decommissioning. Ground cover on the site shall consist of non-invasive species with native vegetation and maintained in accordance with the landscaping maintenance plan in accordance with established performance measures of the approved landscaping plan. King William County Ordinance 86, zoning article 11, landscaping. A performance bond reflecting the cost of anticipated landscaping maintenance shall be posted and maintained. Failure to maintain the landscaping shall result in revocation of the conditional use permit and the facility's decommissioning. The applicant shall identify an access corridor for wildlife to navigate through the solar facility. The proposed wildlife corridor shall be shown on the site plan submitted to the county. Areas between fencing shall not restrict the movement of migratory animals and other wildlife. Design, support buildings, and related structures shall use materials, colors, textures, screening, and landscaping that will blend the facilities to the natural setting and surrounding structures. The owner-operator shall maintain the solar facility in good condition. Such maintenance shall include, but not be limited to, painting, structural integrity of the equipment and structures as applicable, and maintenance of the buffer areas and landscaping. Site access shall be maintained to a level acceptable to the county, in general accordance with the Virginia Department of Transportation Standard 24 VAC 30-73-70 for low commercial entrances or other VDOT required standards. The project owner shall be responsible for the cost of maintaining the solar facility and access roads and the cost of repairing damage to private roads occurring as a result of construction and operation. The operator will repair damaged private roads within 30 days of notification by the county. Repair of damaged public roads will be conducted in accordance with VDOT requirements. A utility-scale solar facility shall be designed and maintained in compliance with standards contained in applicable local, state, and federal building codes and regulations that were enforced at the time of the permit approval. A utility-scale solar facility shall comply with all permitting and other requirements of the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. The applicant shall provide proof of adequate liability insurance for a solar facility prior to beginning construction and before the issuance of a zoning or building permit to the zoning administrator. Lighting fixtures, as approved by the county, shall be a minimum necessary for safety and security purposes to protect the night sky by facing downward and to minimize off-site glare. No facility shall produce glare that would constitute a nuisance to the public during construction or general operation. Any exceptions shall be enumerated on the concept plan and approved by the zoning administrator. No signage of any type may be placed on the facility other than notices, warnings, and identification information required by law. All facilities must meet or exceed the standards and regulations of the Federal Aviation Administration, State Corporation Commission, or equivalent, and any other agency of the local, state, or federal government with the authority to regulate such facilities that are enforced at the time of the application. At all times, the solar facility shall comply with the county's noise ordinance. Any other condition added by the planning commission or board of supervisors as part of the conditional use permit approval. Decommissioning. The following requirements shall be met. Solar facilities which have reached the end of their useful life or have not been in active and continuous service for a period of 1 year shall be removed at the owner or operator's expense, except if the project is being repowered or a force majeure event has or is occurring requiring longer repairs. However, the county may require evidentiary support that a longer repair period is necessary. The owner-operator shall notify the zoning administrator by certified mail of the proposed date of discontinued operation and plans for removal. Decommissioning shall include removal of all solar electric systems, buildings, cabling, electrical components, security barriers, roads, foundations, pilings, and any other associated facilities, so that any agricultural ground upon which the facility and systems were located is again tillable and suitable for agricultural or forestry uses. The site shall be graded and reseeded to restore it as natural a pre-development condition as possible, or replanted with pine seedlings to stimulate pre-timber pre-development conditions as indicated on the preliminary site plan. Any exception to site restoration, such as leaving access roads in place or seeding instead of planting pine seedlings, must be requested by the landowner in writing, and this request must be approved by the Board of Supervisors. Other conditions might be more beneficial or desirable at that time. The site shall be regraded and reseeded or replanted within 12 months of removal of solar facilities. Regrading and reseeding or replanting shall be initiated within a 6-month period of removal of equipment. Decommissioning shall be performed in compliance with the approved decommissioning plan. The Board of Supervisors may approve any appropriate amendments to or modifications of the decommissioning plan. Hazardous material from the property shall be disposed of in accordance with federal and state law. The estimated cost of decommissioning shall be guaranteed by the deposit of funds in an amount equal to the estimated cost in an escrow account at a federally insured financial institution approved by the county, unless otherwise provided for in section 5 below. The applicant shall deposit the required amount into the approved escrow account before any building permit is issued to allow construction of the solar facility. The escrow account agreement shall prohibit the release of the escrow funds without the written consent of the county administrator and county attorney. The county shall consent to the release of the escrow funds upon the owner's or occupant's compliance with the approved decommissioning plan. The county administrator and county attorney may approve the partial release of escrow funds as portions of the approved decommissioning plan are performed. The amount of funds required to be deposited in the escrow account shall be the full amount of the estimated decommissioning cost without regard to the possibility of salvage value. The owner or occupant shall recalculate the estimated cost of decommissioning every 5 years. The recalculated estimated cost of decommissioning exceeds the original estimated cost of decommissioning by 10%, then the owner or occupant shall deposit additional funds into the escrow account to meet the new cost estimate. If the recalculated estimated cost of decommissioning is less than 90% of the original estimated cost of decommissioning, then the county may approve reducing the amount of the escrow account to the recalculated estimate of decommissioning cost upon approval by the county administrator and county attorney. The county may approve alternate methods to secure the availability of funds to pay for the decommissioning of a utility-scale solar facility, such as a performance bond, letter of credit, or other security approved by the county administrator and county attorney. If the owner-operator of the solar facility fails to remove the installation in accordance with the requirements of this permit or within the proposed date of decommissioning, the county may collect the surety, and the county or hired third party may enter the property to physically remove the installation. Applicants for new solar facilities shall coordinate with the county's fire and emergency services staff to provide materials, education, and training to the departments serving the property with fire and emergency services on how to safely respond to on-site emergencies. A solar facility shall be constructed, maintained, and operated in substantial compliance with the approved concept plan, the conditions imposed pursuant to this conditional use permit. The applicant shall pay a supplemental application fee to cover the actual cost of any review of the erosion sediment control plan and the stormwater plans. The applicant shall pay supplemental application fee to cover the actual cost of any erosion, sediment control, and stormwater inspections. If the solar facility does not receive a building permit within 24 months of approval of the conditional use permit, the permit shall be terminated. If the solar facility is declared to be unsafe by the zoning administrator or building official, the facility must be in compliance within 14 days or other such time frame as determined by the zoning administrator or building official. Failure to comply shall result in the conditional use permit being terminated and solar electric systems, buildings, cabling, electrical equipment, security barriers, roads, foundations, pilings, and any other associated facilities removed from the property. The owner and operator shall give the county written notice of any change in ownership, operator, or power purchase agreement within 30 days. All federal, state, and county permit required reviews and approvals must be obtained prior to the commencement of land disturbance activities. The erosion sediment control plan shall be prepared and implemented as a sequential progression, demonstrating that not more than 25% of the site be disturbed and not stabilized at any one time during construction. The erosion sediment control plans will provide the means and measures to achieve stabilization of the disturbed areas to comply with this condition. The plan shall be reviewed by the county or by a qualified third party. However, the third-party review shall not supersede any requirements imposed by state agencies. The applicant shall construct, maintain, and operate the solar facility in compliance with the approved plan. Traffic management. The applicant shall comply with all Virginia Department of Transportation recommendations for traffic management during construction of the site and decommissioning of the site. The road shall be maintained in good condition during the construction phase and be brought back to the original condition or improved upon completion of the construction and decommissioning phases. The applicant shall consult with the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation's Division of Dam Safety and Floodplain Management to conduct an inspection and evaluation of dams within the project area and ensure compliance with dam safety regulations for VAC 50-20. The applicant shall make whatever repairs and renovations required by the Dam Safety Division prior to the issuance of final permits for construction of the solar facility. The construction hours are restricted from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. This includes decommissioning activities. A facility stormwater pollution plan shall be developed and implemented for the Sweet Sioux Solar Facility and shall be maintained for the duration of the facility's operation. The stormwater pollution prevention plan is intended to document the selection, design, and installation of control measures, including best management practices, to minimize the pollutants and all stormwater discharges from the facility and to meet applicable effluent limitations and water quality standards as applicable. The SWIP will require county review and approval prior to operation and annually thereafter. The plan shall include at a minimum the following items: a pollution prevention team, site description. The stormwater pollution plan shall include the following: activities at the facility, general location map, quadrangle or USGS quadrangle or other, with enough detail to identify the location of the facility and receiving orders within 1 mile of the facility. Site map identifying the following: the boundaries of the property and the size of the property in acres, the location and extent of significant structures and impervious surfaces, locations of all stormwater conveyance, including ditches, pipes, swales, inlets, and the direction of stormwater flow. Locations of all existing structural and source control measures, including BMPs, location of all surface water bodies, including wetlands, locations of potential pollution sources, locations of activities exposed to precipitation, equipment maintenance, cleaning areas, loading, unloading areas, locations for the treatment, storage, disposal of any waste, areas, access roads, and machinery, locations of stormwater outfalls, and an approximate outline of the area draining to each outfall, and location of municipal stormwater sewer systems if the stormwater from the facility discharges to them. Outfalls shall be numbered using a unique numerical identification code for each outfall. Location description of all non-stormwater discharges. Location of any storage piles containing salt used for de-icing or other commercial or industrial purposes. Locations and sources of runoff to the site from adjacent property where the runoff contains significant quantities of pollutants. And locations of all stormwater monitoring points. Receiving waters and wetlands. The name of all surface waters receiving discharges from the site, including intermittent streams, drought sloughs, and arroyos, provide a prescription of wetland sites that may receive discharges from the facility. A summary of potential pollution sources, solar panel type and contents, inverters, collection systems, components, substation access roads, and operation and maintenance building. Stormwater controls type and location. The operator shall implement the following types of control measures to prevent control pollutants in the stormwater discharges from the facility unless they can be demonstrated and documented that these controls, or such controls are not relevant to the discharges. Good housekeeping, the permittee shall keep clean all exposed areas of the facility that are potential sources of pollutants to stormwater discharges. Elimination and minimizing exposure, preventive maintenance. The operator shall have a preventive maintenance program that includes regular inspections, testing, maintenance, and repairing of all equipment and systems to avoid situations that could result in leaks, spills, and other releases of pollutants in stormwater discharge from the facility. Sediment erosion control. The plan shall identify areas of the facility that, due to topography, land disturbance, or other factors, have a potential for soil erosion. The operator shall identify and implement structural, vegetative, and stabilization control measures to prevent or control on-site and off-site erosion and sedimentation. Flow velocity dissipation devices shall be placed at discharge locations along the length of any outfall channel if the flows would otherwise create erosive conditions. The management of runoff. The plan shall describe the stormwater runoff management practices for the facility. These types of control measures are typically used to divert, infiltrate, reuse, or otherwise reduce pollutants and stormwater discharges from the site. Routine facility inspections. Facility personnel who possess the knowledge and skills to assess conditions and activities that could impact stormwater quality of the facility and who can also evaluate the effectiveness of control measures shall regularly inspect all areas of the facility exposed to stormwater. The inspection frequency shall be specified in the plan based upon a consideration of the level of industrial activity at the facility, but shall be, at a minimum, quarterly unless more frequent intervals are specified elsewhere or written approval is received from the county for less frequent intervals. Inspections shall be performed during periods where the facility is in operation. At least once each calendar year, the routine facility inspection shall be conducted during a period when a stormwater discharge is occurring. The operations and maintenance plan detailing procedures and a regular schedule for preventive maintenance of all control measures, and shall include a description of the backup practices that are in place should a runoff event occur while a control measure is offline. The effectiveness of non-structural control measures shall also be maintained by appropriate means. All control measures identified in the plan shall be maintained in effective operating conditions and shall be observed at least annually during active operation, during a stormwater runoff event, to ensure that they are functioning correctly. Where discharge locations are inaccessible, nearby downstream locations shall be observed. The observations shall be documented in the stormwater pollution prevention plan. Comprehensive site compliance evaluation. The operator shall conduct comprehensive site compliance evaluations at least once each calendar year. The evaluation shall be done by qualified personnel who possess the knowledge and skills to assess conditions and activities that could impact stormwater quality at the facility, and who can also evaluate the effectiveness of control measures, evidence of or the potential for pollutants entering the drainage system, evidence of pollutants discharging to surface waters at all facility outfalls, and the condition of and around the outfall, including flow dissipation measures to prevent scouring, review of stormwater-related training performed, inspections completed, maintenance performed, quarterly visual examinations, and effective operation of control measures, including BMPs. Results of both visual and any analytical monitoring done during the past year shall be taken into consideration during the evaluation. The applicant shall pay a supplemental fee as determined by the Board of Supervisors to cover the costs to contract with an engineering firm with the experience and knowledge of solar facility planning, construction, and operation, including a working knowledge of federal and state requirements to conduct plan reviews, evaluations of submittals, construction and operation monitoring and inspections to include decommissioning management.
The representative of that, the applicant here, as well as yourself, Phil said, do any of the commissioners have any questions for either Mr. Etter or for the applicant? the applicant on this matter. Thank you, Mr. Pettit. All right, at this time, any further discussion on the application?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would like to read a statement for review and discussion.
Okay. All right, everyone good with it? Go ahead, Mr. Wagner.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, staff, and interested citizens. The Sweet Sioux Solar Center LLC is the subsidiary of Invenergy Solar Development North America LLC. Invenergy submitted an application for a conditional use permit on August 7, 2019, and since that time has held 3 community meetings and has participated in 2 public hearings before the Planning Commission. There has been some fairly significant opposition to this application, voiced at the community meetings, public hearings, as well as letters and documents submitted to the planning staff and planning commission. Much of the opposition was from the Graves family, whose farm, Denby, shares a border of 5,400 feet along the east and south sides of the proposed solar center. The solar panels proposed along the eastern border appear to be located within 100 feet of the Graves property. Of particular significance are 2 reports submitted by the Graves family. The first report, Industrial Solar Farms, an in-depth look at how industrial solar farms impact the rural tidewater community counties in the Middle Peninsula and Northern Net. This report was developed by the Essex County Conservation Alliance and details issues with solar farms located in the local areas, as well as those facilities across the country. Of particular interest is Cornell Energy's 200-acre solar station, located just off Route 17 near Dunsville in Essex County. The report details the results of a heavy rainfall that lasted for several days and resulted in tons of sediment being washed into the tributaries of the Rappahannock River. This, as well as other issues cited at various locations, does provide a wake-up call to those responsible for review and approval of solar facilities, as well as those responsible for the construction, maintenance, and oversight of these facilities, that proper precautions are taken to protect against such problems. The second report was in response to a report on property values, which was provided in Energy's application for a conditional use permit. The report submitted by the law firm of Flora and Pettit challenged the methodology in the report provided by Energy. The conclusions drawn by each of the reports are inconclusive as to the similarity of the properties assessed. Only one short section of the Sweet Sioux Solar Center can be seen from a public road, and the solar panels on that section will be located approximately 700 feet from that road. The remainder of the solar center is surrounded by natural vegetation and will be screened from view. The nearest dwelling is over 700 feet from the nearest solar panel. It is unlikely that land values will be affected by this facility, since for all practical purposes, the site will be invisible to the surrounding properties. There will be no noise from the site except during construction, and little if any activity will occur on a daily basis. Another issue of concern is the economic impact of this project on the county revenue. A report submitted by Energy in October provides an analysis and concludes that the average property tax revenue from the Sweet Sioux Solar Project over a 30-year period would be $87,057. These figures should be reviewed and confirmed by staff and the Commissioner of Revenue. It needs to be noted that such revenue could be diminished by staff time for monitoring and inspecting facilities, unless the contract with the applicant provides for the applicant to be responsible for the costs associated with all such reviews by staff or an independent consultant hired by the county for that purpose. The planning staff and the planning commission have reviewed all comments, letters, and reports submitted for and in opposition to the Sweet Sioux Solar Center's application for a conditional use permit, and are recommending 18 conditions to be imposed on the applicant. Department of Environmental Quality's rules and regulations, as well as other state and federal requirements. We believe that all such rules and regulations are responsibly enforced. The 576-acre solar facility, under normal conditions, could be approved. However, I firmly believe there is a fatal flaw with the Sweet Sioux Solar Center because of its location. Specifically, the 576-acre site is located on a plateau surrounded on its southern and eastern borders by relatively steep slopes, descending from 30 feet to 60 feet to extensive wetlands bordering on Webb Creek and Governor's Run. These two streams join in at the southeastern end of the site to form Montoon Creek, which flows under Venter Road, Route 360, and Route 661 and onto the Pamunkey River. As a result of its location, the proposed Sweet Sioux Solar Center poses a significant risk to public and private property, as well as wildlife habitat adjacent to and downstream from the solar center. Over the 30-plus years, year life of this project, it is reasonable to expect to experience a rainfall event of the magnitude of a 50-year storm, such as the county experienced with Tropical Storm Gaston a few years ago. As with Gaston, the streams and wetlands, private properties, and public roads adjacent to, as well as downstream from this project, could experience severe flooding and property damage, which could include closure of public roads for an extended period of time. It is my belief that the severity of the storm could be exacerbated by increased velocity and volume of runoff from the 576-acre site due to the impervious solar panels covering 60% to 80% of the 576 solar site. Were it not for the location of this 576-acre Sweet Sioux Solar Center, I would have no qualms with recommending approval of this project with the conditions we have recommended. However, given the increased risk involved with this location of this project with the probability of runoff from a major rainfall event, I see no responsible course other than to recommend that the Board of Supervisors deny Sweet Sioux Solar Center's application for a conditional use permit.
Thank you, Mr. Whitman. Other comments from anyone? Anybody? Mr. Etter,
Yes, sir.
the inspections that you'll have to be doing over the course of you and your staff will be doing, how will that be funded? I thought I read in the conditions that the applicant will be paying for any of these studies and inspections that are done. Am I misreading that?
No, they will have to pay, we will pass an ordinance for planning and zoning fees that include the cost for inspections, and they will be responsible for paying any of the supplemental fees for inspections, including erosion sediment control, stormwater, annual inspections during the project or life of a project.
When do you anticipate that going before the board?
Probably in April
So,
or May.
so as it stands right now, the applicant does or does not have to pay for, because in reading the conditions, I read that they would have to pay for any inspections done.
They will. They will have to pay a supplemental fee. We just haven't established this fee yet because it requires an ordinance.
Someone from the applicant, quick question for you all. So, and I've never been a farmer, and I would be the first to admit that every spring, depending on the farming, we plow the land, and so it's exposed to rainfall. While you all are building it, you'll have a large open area, although we've limited how much you can have open at any given time. But you'll have fencing and other silt things to catch all that, as I understand all the regulations and so forth and so on. Once it's been constructed, you're going to be having some sort of meadow grass on it?
Yeah, that's right. There's a, excuse me, one of the conditions for the permit is that we revegetate using non-invasive species, including native plants, native vegetation.
And so once that's all there, wouldn't there be less runoff in the spring than there is now at the farm?
Correct. I mean, the DEQ categorizes solar facilities as pervious, not impervious, due to the nature of the ground cover that underlies solar facilities, as compared to the millions of gallons of irrigation, of water that's pumped for irrigation purposes on the disturbed land currently. Runoff should be substantially reduced.
And the solar farm that I visited down in North Carolina a couple of years ago, prior to us passing the ordinance, there were no cement slabs underneath the panels, there were just holes going in the ground, and there was either dirt or grass of some sort. So will you have slabs that are impervious, or will you be putting poles in the ground?
No, they'll
The
be.
application was there would not be any kind of impervious other than holes going in the ground.
That's correct. They're 4-inch H piles that are driven into the ground, allowing all of the other ground cover to remain, vegetated.
The way I read it, we stand to be less likely, and again, during construction, if there's a 500-year flood, if a Gaston flood or something, we could experience the catastrophe that Essex did if the EPC does not do the proper things and staff does not follow through. And so once it's constructed, though, it seems to me that there would be less possibility for flooding downstream on the roads into the creeks than there is now. Every spring when planting comes, or any time of year, there'd be the same amount if there's some sort of ground cover, grasses or something else. So I'm not really sure how there's any risk of flooding down once it's constructed. During the construction, I hope you pick a good EPC. I hope you don't pick the same one that Essex had. Or I hope you're under blessing.
And I think we've put enhanced, ENS controls and plan requirements into the conditions of the permit that, should put the devices installed, should require them to be of a nature that was, greater than what was used at Essex, to account for, these anomaly storm events. And that's kind of my understanding from, reading the conditions and discussing the same with Ron.
Thank you very much. I would recommend, Mr. Wagner, I would recommend that as we go forward and revise the ordinance, in the future, if we want to limit the slope within a certain distance from the facility, we should do that. However, this applicant applied into the existing ordinance. We've identified a number of reasonable conditions, and I'm comfortable that we should recommend approval. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Barry, if I may, you said DEQ has said there would be less runoff, something to that effect, whatever you said, but has DEQ or anybody provided any studies to show the runoff condition? I'm not concerned about erosion. I think you've taken care of that. But the runoff condition before with the farming condition and a runoff condition with the solar panels. To say that solar panels are not impervious is beyond my belief.
Well, the panels themselves certainly are impervious. Yeah, but the ground underlying the panels is pervious, and will be revegetated in a way that rather than having that flow of water simply run off the site, it's going to be absorbed into the ground.
What DEQ requires as stormwater retention? What level of storm is that based on?
I'd have to defer to.
Yeah, we look at a variety of storm events during the stormwater analysis. And there are a couple of different ways DEQ gives the engineer options to meet the requirements for quality and quantity. They range from the 1-year storm event, which obviously is very intense, versus they also have an option for a 10-year storm event analysis. And then we handled a 100-year storm event, but we don't have to reduce the flow from the 100-year storm event, and that's a standard for DEQ. So we're looking at least the 1 in 10 year during operations of the facility.
Well,
Darren?
given that you've got all the stormwater management basins and so forth in place, if you had a 50 or 100-year storm, aren't those stormwater management basins going to overflow? And once they overflow, if that storm continues, isn't that going to substantially increase the runoff? Because once that storm starts, the ground's going to become saturated. Once the ground is saturated, everything runs off. Same thing with your stormwater management basins. Once they overflow, and everything after that overflow is going to run off.
Yeah, so when we're looking at the permanent ongoing operations of the facility and what our stormwater has to meet for the requirements, if we were to install ponds permanently for that, those ponds are not allowed to overtop in a 100-year storm event. The state requires a minimum of 1 foot of freeboard between the top of that bank and the 100-year elevation. So if we design a pond, we will have a control structure sitting in the pond to control the 110 and other storm events. And then we also will have an overflow to kind of pass the 10-year or the 100-year safely. And it will be at a minimum 1 foot below the top of the bank. So based on the state requirements and based on our design, it will be at least 100 or 1 feet below the top of the bank during the 100-year storm event. So the ponds will not overtop in the 100-year storm event, which is the maximum storm that DEQ makes us analyze.
The two ponds that are out there, I understand the Dam Safety Division has taken a look at those, and we do have a requirement in there that those be inspected by the legal civil engineer prior to issuing final permit.
They have to be brought into compliance prior to the construction permit being issued.
In the event of a 50 or 100-year storm, would they overtop?
But we would have to look at what DCR would require for that. I personally have not designed a dam, so I can't answer that directly, but the water going to those, at least that's controlled by our project, the water going to those ponds, really almost a lake, would be reduced from the current condition. So even in an 100 or plus storm event, the water hitting that lake or those ponds would be reduced with our project compared to what's out there today.
And the dams would be brought into compliance through the removal of trees and the revegetation of the dams per the DCR's inspection, thereby strengthening them to handle a lower volume of water.
So your project would result in less runoff once it's been constructed in the existing farm, and the dams will be in better condition than they are now. Am I understanding that correctly? Well,
Yeah, we're required
Yeah, we
to do that.
And we can't have a construction permit issued if we aren't in compliance with the condition.
Okay. Listen to the front bit.
Could any of y'all tell me how much percentage estimate of the parcels that are being considered part of this application are already cleared or are being farmed, or what percentage is natural vegetation, whatever you want to call it? How much of it has already been cleared to date or being farmed?
I don't have those exact numbers handy. I mean, if you look at the Chenault property, if you look at the Chenault property that we have under lease, I would estimate 90+% is currently in agricultural use, cleared, disturbed. The Flippo property to the south is a timber tract that's obviously not disturbed land. A much smaller portion of our facility is located on that parcel. And as we continue to design and refine the design, we expect even less of the facility to be installed on that parcel. So if you're looking at percentage of the facility that we estimate will fall on disturbed land versus undisturbed land. I'd say it's about a 90 to 95% falling on disturbed land, agricultural land, and 5 to 10% falling on the timberland.
I had asked in our original public hearing regarding the parcel 2033 that has a family grave site on it.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been identified, whether that is part of the leased location on that parcel that y'all intend to have the solar on?
So it is part of the limits of disturbance, but it is outside of the facility footprint. So we distinguish between the full scope of our leasehold, which is 1,262 acres, and then we identify a 576 acre facility footprint. So the gravesite is outside of that facility footprint, but it is within the bounds of our lease.
Thank you.
So you won't be disturbing that gravesite?
No.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Is that inside or outside the fence?
Outside of the fence.
Well,
Sure, outside of the fence.
So that grave, outside the fence? Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Mr. Greenwood?
I wanted to bring it to the attention to the board, this is just a request for a conditional use permit. This is not a total green light for them to just push the solar panels through. Everybody keeps thinking this is a done deal. This is just the beginning step. They have to go through lots of other permits, lots of DEQ things. If they find out that this site that Mr. Wagner was saying, it is too much runoff on that slope from DEQ or dam quality control or whatever, they'll tell them that they have to change something or not use that, and then they'll cut that part off. This is just the maximum area that they're asking for, and it's only a request for the conditional use permit for this. There are lots of other things that has to come to us. I don't know, I may ask Mr. Eder, does it come to us again as the planning commission for final approval if they meet all these requirements, if it goes through in the end, or does that just come to Board of Supervisors?
This is goes to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, so it does have to have another vote though,
Yeah, Board of Supervisors, they'll have a public hearing.
if they meet all the requirements through all these permits.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, just one. I thought we had to do it again to actually say they can pursue.
No, sir, if the Board of Supervisors decide,
To issue the permit.
if they decide to approve the conditional use permit, then they'll go to construction.
If they meet all
It's
the
start-
requirements.
Well, they've got to go through all the
Right, all those
issues.
steps, that's what I mean.
But yeah, they still got to do the permit by rule, which is the biggie with the DEQ.
Right, that's what I'm trying to point out.
There is much more to be done as far as the plan.
Right.
Right, this is a
It's just
preliminary,
preliminary,
this is a
right.
preliminary site
A lot of
plan.
stuff could still change, that's what I'm putting, it's not, that's not.
Up to a certain point,
Up to a certain
because if there's significant changes to their site plan, it will come back to here.
Okay.
Because I would take that as a modification. Now, there's certain modifications that I can handle,
In-house.
administratively, but if it got too far off of that conceptual plan,
Right.
then
That's what
I
I'm
would
trying
bring it
to
out.
bring up.
One thing they could also do is make a smaller footprint. They talked about the maximum is
Right.
576 to 561, but it could not go higher than that, that can back.
Right, like I
As
said,
well
they
as all
found out
the-
that this area is too slopey, DEQ could suggest them not to do it, they can go ahead and take that out.
Right.
Right, and that would
Wouldn't
not
affect-
trigger me to come back before
Right.
the commission.
One of the
But it went there.
one of the concerns that I had is the planning commission should make a recommendation to approve whatever conditions we think are appropriate. But even once the Board of Supervisors, if you all decide to approve it, there's so much more that they have to do, so many more steps that have to apply to environmental as well as with other state and federal agencies. and
Right, that's what I was pointing out, there are many more
There's
steps
lots
than
of
just
steps,
this.
yes.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Back in the Senate.
Okay. So, if this had been 5 years ago, this wouldn't even be before the planning commission, it wouldn't be permitted. So you stated in the summary of the conditional use permit analysis, the Board of Supervisors adopted the zoning ordinance to permit solar facilities subject to reasonable conditions imposed by the planning commission in the AC district. And that's what we have here. So had this occurred 10 years ago, this wouldn't even be on the table. So now we have a standard of review that you read, Mr. Etter, before we even got into the conditions, which are 6 pages of conditions. And what that standard of review is that the planning commission should approve if essentially 3 standards are met. You listed those, including the location is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan, and I'm not going to recite that. Then it establishes that the planning commission may recommend reasonable conditions to the Board of Supervisors. I think the 6 pages, and I've looked at these, and this has been an evolution of discussion, town hall meetings, is about as reasonable as I can think of. And I've looked through them, and I can think of a lot of what ifs, but we have this scope of review, and it says that we can impose reasonable conditions, and I believe, it is my opinion, that the planning commission has done that. In Mr. Wagner's documentation this evening, I appreciate these comments as well. Concerns with the runoff, things of that nature. But where I've come down on it is that revenue to the county is not one of the considerations. It is citizens of the county that are our considerations to the county. So I'm not concerned about revenue to the county. And I believe with the additional bonds in place, the conditions of the 6 pages of conditions, and the federal and state agencies that are involved, and they have the expertise that I do not have in order to ensure and to assist and to help and prevent runoff, that the planning commission has done its job in terms of developing conditions that are satisfactory and reasonable. So for that reason, I believe that I would support a motion in favor of the conditional use permit.
Are you making that motion at this time?
Unless there are other comments the
Any
commissioners
further
would like to
discussion?
add.
At this time, then I would entertain a motion one way or the other.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve, to recommend approval of the conditional use permit with the conditions as Mr. Etter read in the packet. I've got a second. We've got a motion properly seconded to approve the conditional use permit with the conditions identified tonight. If you would have a roll call vote. Ms. Cole?
Ms. Bonnie Height,
Nay.
Ms. Janie Rhodes,
Aye.
Mr. Don Wagner,
Nay.
Mr. Stephen Greenwood,
Aye.
and Chairman John Reed.
Aye. The motion carries. We've made a recommendation, and so it goes to the next level, Board of Supervisors.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Wagner.
I would request that my comments be included in the packet of the board.
I would concur, in fact, well, not only that, but to be reflected in the minutes in full as well would be sent to Board of Supervisors as well, so if you can take care of that, Mr. Etter, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, I want to thank the commissioners for the time you spent on this, and staff, the time you spent on this, and those of you who've been interested as we go along, thank you all as well. Solar farms are coming, solar facilities are coming, and we want further ones here in King William County. It's in the ordinance, we've applied reasonable conditions for this one. Do you want more or less? And they'll get the Board of Supervisors to decide. I would encourage you to give them your opinions. They will certainly hear from you. So again, thank you all for that. And at this time, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is, I believe, the adoption of our 2020 planning commission meeting schedule. Mr. Etter.
That's going to be awesome.
Oh, I'll tell you at 16.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it's all.
That was fine.
And it's the same schedule we
Yeah.
talked about
Yeah,
at
yeah.
December meeting.
Okay.
And did everybody find it in the packet? I don't know if you had a chance to look through it, but it, basically, the first Tuesday of each month, 7 PM, and we did not come across any conflicts with holidays this time around.
Actually, the November 3rd date, I have listed on my calendar as election day.
Oh,
And they even said something about like,
Yeah, right.
votes, but I was wondering about that myself.
I do too.
I didn't check it. Is it the 3rd or the 6th?
It's the
Third.
I got it on the 3rd, y'all can check it. Sure.
Well, that would just result in us moving it up a week.
so we'll talk about that when we get to the bylaw discussion as well, because that's a prescriptive provision in terms of our meeting dates.
Yeah, that's not to.
But that's typically,
Would you like to table this until we go over the bylaws? Okay, let's go ahead and table the discussion of the meeting calendar. And the next item up is actually, let's go ahead and hold off on the election of the chairman, vice chairman. Let's go straight to the bylaws, which is 7A4. And then we'll circle back and get the calendar report from there. So the bylaws. Ms. Rhodes?
so I had two comments, I think to 7-1, which is on page 3 of 6, which we just spoke to, regular meetings of the commission shall be held on the first Tuesday of each month at 7 PM. So in this case, it says if it falls on a legal holiday, which I don't think the election day is yet, then we would have to move it to the following week. So I would propose that maybe we look at that language. The other one would be section 7.4 that speaks to what constitutes a quorum. It says 4 members of the commission shall constitute a quorum.
If you'll check your packet, that was actually, those were the,
Was that revised?
Yeah, and it now reads,
Good.
it reads, "A majority of the members shall constitute a quorum, and no action of the commission shall be valid unless authorized by majority vote of those present and voting in accord with 15.2-2215."
Oh, good.
so yours was what had been set up before, but this was in the packet. And the only other changes to what you had received before was the word citizen was struck for both the chair and the vice chair, because that seemed to imply that the supervisor member could not be chair.
Yes.
And we struck that before Mr. Greenwood was elected chair a couple of years ago. Other than that, it exactly reflects what you received before.
Okay, good. So I remember vaguely having that discussion. And
Yes.
then, okay, perfect.
On our bylaws, I would suggest we don't worry about changing it for the election. It doesn't happen that often.
Yep.
We know we need to, again, one of the reasons to adopt the calendar is to identify these sorts of things that may come up. So,
Change November 3rd to November 10th.
yeah, so actually, I want to go back to the bylaws a little bit. So let's go back then to the adoption of the calendar.
That's what I wanted to bring it up to.
Yes.
Chairman, I
Yes.
had another comment.
On the bylaws, I will go back to the bylaws. I want to talk about the bylaws at length.
Oh, okay.
But the only reason I'm going to go for that was if we had to do something with the date.
Okay.
So, and I apologize for the confusion. So we'll go back to the calendar and we'll move it from the 3rd to the 10th. Are there any other changes?
Like I said at the bottom, it does state meeting dates changed due to a holiday and election date, so it's already on there, it's just the asterisk was left off and the date wasn't changed.
Okay, very
I
nice.
assume, I don't know why else it would be on that page. Maybe it was left over.
Well, that was from
But
last year. I actually got the answer.
So maybe we should add the asterisk to the November and change it to what, the
Well,
10th?
if we just go ahead and change, yes.
just change the 10th to 9th.
Okay. And adopt that.
Add the asterisk.
And I'll probably be unable to attend July 7th, but I do not need to be here, so we don't need to change the date necessarily. I may or may not be here. So we'll change the 3rd to the 10th. Any other changes to our meeting schedule? motion to adopt the meeting schedule for calendar year 2020. Do I have a motion? I have a motion to adopt the calendar as amended. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have 2 seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The calendar is adopted. Thank you all very much. And now to new business. And the first item is to elect the chair. Do we have any nominations at this time for chair?
I'll make a motion that Mr. Wagner be our chair for 2020.
Got a motion for Mr. Wagner, do not get a second. Are there any other nominations?
I'd like to make a motion that you stay chairman for the next year, just since we've got so much stuff going on with the ordinances and everything, but
We
it
would have,
doesn't really matter.
we would have to vote for Mr. Wagner. but-
Oh, I thought you have to take all nominations first.
Well, we hear the other nominations. But since Mr. Wagner's nomination was brought up first, that's the one we will vote on. And I would be happy to serve as chair again. I'm also tickled pink to hand it over to someone else as well. So let's go ahead and have a roll call for the nomination of Mr. Wagner for chair.
Mr. Wagner, are you willing to serve as chair?
Yes.
I guess we should have had a second.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I had that impression. I normally
Yes,
would do that. I normally would do that, but I
You
think
know,
Mr. Wagner would probably be called to. And if you can call the roll from this direction, heading that way.
Ms. Janie Rhodes,
Aye.
Chairman John Reed. Oh, I'm sorry. Chairman John Reed.
Aye.
Mr. Stephen Greenwood. And Ms. Bonnie.
Okay. Motion passes. Mr. Wagner is our chairman for next year. Congratulations, Mr. Wagner. At this time, I would entertain nominations for election of a vice chair. Do I have any nominations for vice chair?
Consider serving. I would nominate Jamie Rhodes.
Got a nomination for vice chair of Ms. Jeannie Rhodes. Do we have any other nominations? In that case, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Rhodes, on being elected vice chair. Very good. Okay, now we're up to, the appointment of the commission secretary. And we don't need to have any kind of nominations. Are you all comfortable with reappointing Mr. Etter as our secretary? So all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Mr. Etter. And now we're back to our bylaws. So you're comfortable, Ms. Rose, did you have anything else other than what we've already talked about?
Well, clearly I was looking at the wrong thing.
Well, the only changes were the striking of the citizen for the 2 things. And the
Right,
four.
I'll take a quick look, right now. Maybe we should forego my comments, see who else has any.
I do have the one that you saw in your packet, but before we hit mine, does anyone else have anything?
I had one other thing, it's not that it's really required, but in Article 8, Order of Business, we normally have had a review and adoption of meeting agenda. So I was wondering if that should be added between roll call and consideration of minutes.
That's a good idea. Y'all okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Good catch. What else?
That was the only thing that I had.
Ms. Greenwood?
And
Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, under Article 3 membership, we say the number, and for the term of office, the board shall, not what I'm going to say, members of the commission shall be appointed for terms as established by the board. And a couple places we've got similar language. Shouldn't we say, instead of saying established by the board, shouldn't we call out what was established since the bylaws are approved each year?
Well, they don't necessarily need to be approved each year, just if we have changes, I'm hoping and expecting we'll keep these bylaws for a while.
Does anybody know from year to year what the board is?
So has it changed historically, the terms of the planning commissioner?
They changed about 3 years ago, didn't they? not the terms, but,
What they did.
No, the number.
Oh, they changed the number.
Well, the
but-
number, right.
Right,
We also
okay.
went from having to have a member for
For
each
each
district
district, right, to at
also
large.
having a member at large.
Okay.
Yeah.
But neither of those are affected by our bylaws.
No, no.
Our
that's
bylaws
what
do say a minimum of 5, and that is the minimum required by the state.
Right,
So even if the supervisors wanted to
Yep.
drop it to 3, they could not. They could increase it to 7, 9, or whatever they wish, as past boards have done. But again, our bylaws will need to be changed because we say a minimum of 5, and then the quorum and the majority of those present takes care of that, whether it's 5, 7, 10, or 8, 8. So you okay with leaving that where it is, Mr. Wagner?
not really.
So how do you want to change it? So how do you want to change it then?
No, whatever
You
the
want
board
it to-
No,
has required, is what, the way it should be in here, I think.
Okay,
Is
so,
this what the board requires? Because this says, as established by the board.
right,
Members of the commission shall be appointed for terms as established by the board.
so what
Both
do
of
you,
those terms.
uh,
The terms are 4 years, but it didn't say.
that's fine.
it just means, which is fine, that if the board changes it, then we have to amend our bylaws.
Which is fine, they haven't changed it in 15 years.
Well, that's why I was asking the question, is historically how they changed it.
They've not changed that. no.
Okay.
So, Mr. Wagner, and are you at 3-2? If we say
I'm at 3 2, yeah.
Mhm.
members of the commission shall be appointed for terms of 4 years?
Yes.
Do you want to just go ahead and leave as established by the
Or
board?
as otherwise,
4 years as established by the board.
Okay. Anything else? If not, we'll get to my fun little addition.
All right.
And I had recommended either adding to section 5-3-4 or adding a new 5-3-9. I would recommend the 5-3-9 retain audiovisual recordings of the meetings until after the minutes have been approved and 3 months after the end of the calendar year, whichever is longer. Document destruction in accordance with Virginia Public Records Act. This actually brings us into compliance with the Public Records Act for these recordings. With any records that the county has, they're supposed to be in compliance with the Public Records Act and the record retention rules associated with it. This is something that it's good that these meetings are put on tape, and citizens don't need to be here to actually hear what goes on, although they miss some of the entertainment, I guess. However, how long do you keep those recordings? The Library of Virginia has a particular record series that says unless it's historically significant, you get rid of them. And so this brings us into compliance with the Public Records Act. So are y'all okay with that, making that addition?
So we don't have to keep them, just 3 months is enough.
No, 3 months after the end of the calendar,
After the
well,
calendar.
after the end of the calendar year and after all the minutes have been approved.
I was
So-
wondering, is there a problem keeping them forever? That way we'd have a record of them, but I mean, I don't know.
Well, we got minutes. The minutes are retained forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely fine with it. I did, however, wonder whether it could even go under like an 8-3-2. But whichever placement, I'm fine with.
I'd be fine with either one. We all okay with leaving it to staff to decide where to put it?
No, I've already, yeah, that's great, because that makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
That
perfect.
location.
Yeah, because the other duties of officers, that to me doesn't make sense, the duties of officers. Yeah, I like that.
Perfect.
That 8-3-2.
Yeah. That,
Good. So all in favor of approving the amended the amended bylaws, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the one thing which is not a change to the bylaws, but if, Ms. Cole, if you would include the date they were approved down at the bottom.
Yes.
And when we get to next year, we'll see that they're the same ones we approved today. We'll see there was any changes during 2020, and we'll just approve, continue to use them going forward. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, the next item up is future work session dates for zoning ordinance revision. Mr. Etter, are you ready for us?
Yes, I'm hoping that we are all on board for January 21st.
I may have a conflict, but I'm trying to be here.
Okay, because right now, I think we established earlier today that January 21st would be our next work session, if y'all approve that. I would like to do it at 6:30. Representatives of the Berkeley Group will be here to clarify and help any questions that might come up. I am trying very hard to make sure that I get y'all a draft of, well, this final version at least a week before. And if possible, I'm going to try to get it 2 weekends before. I'm trying to try to get this to y'all by the, I think the 11th or 12th. So that you'll have adequate time to look over them and then prepare any questions so we can have a very productive work session on the 21st.
I am available then, so I don't know if I can't remember if I responded or not.
You did.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. It's been one of those years so far. Can you let us know just at some point, not tonight, where we are on things, because I was unable to attend the last.
Well, really, at this point,
Yeah.
I asked Berkeley to finalize.
Okay,
There's still, of course, going to be some, because this is a draft.
yeah,
But we have, as the planning commission has gone through, and I thought it was time that we really put it as a final version,
so
final draft.
you'll have that to us.
You're going to get all
as soon as
200
possible.
pages of it.
Okay, okay,
I'm hoping
okay,
by no later than the 12th, I'd like to get that draft
okay.
to y'all, but that is where we are. We've gone through it all at least twice, really. I think, and then on the work session, anything that I've missed or things that we realize that we want to add or change, we can able to do that. And then the nice part is we get that. One of the reasons I wanted Berkeley Group here for this next session is to answer any technical questions that, I have and they don't have.
All right.
Do you think we're going to be able to cover all 200 feet? Now, granted, we should be able to just hit the high points.
Well, I think, I have certain areas that I would like for y'all to concentrate on, that I think we need to knock down. But honestly, I don't think there's a whole lot that we're going to need to go over.
Do you think after that date, we're ready to begin expanding to
Yes, sir. That's
some
my hope.
public meetings and or joint meeting with board of supervisors?
Almost simultaneously. Yes. Once we establish, the 21st, we can discuss it further. But I think we should be at the point where we can get it out to public comment and bring in, because the Historical Architectural Review Board would like to sit in. I know that we need to have a joint session with the Board of Supervisors. And that I would like to do as a precursor to taking it out to public comment. Because that's a real key element to all of this. But yeah, I think I'm hoping that we'll be in that position so we can go ahead and roll this thing out in February.
Right. Further comments, questions?
You said multiple dates. Did you have more than one date in mind?
What, for January 21st?
You didn't say just January, you said work session dates, not just one session.
Oh, no, but
That was just one.
Yeah, it's
That
just
was
one.
nice. You had a session date, so thought maybe you wanted to set up 3 or 4.
no, well, the big thing is once y'all get the draft in your hands, then we'll know real quick whether we can get it done in one session or not.
Right, instead of looking at piecemeal, just kind of doing it.
Yeah, but then I think that we'll schedule, like we were just talking about, our next work session will probably be with the Board of Supervisors. That would be my scheduling preference.
I would ask that
call this regular scheduled meeting, so that we have some goals to meet early here.
Again, it's easier for us to say that we don't need them and we can cancel them versus us all trying to come up with something in our schedules to look forward to, so, thank
That's
you.
what the board has done, that we add another work session to our whole calendar, like, so we can always delete them. We now have added 2 meetings every month for the supervisor.
And that's what I was thinking, for Mr. Wagner and I talked about it and do the email thing, but yeah, just, once a month right now, I'll probably set up a date that, a recurring work session date.
Because I do think they're probably going to be needed throughout this year, with everything we got going on, so. Thank you.
All right, you're still up. Proposed master utility plan discussion.
Yes, sir. Right now, we're in the process of updating the master utilities plan. It's in the draft form, Resources doing it for us right now, but some of the things that I think are important to bring to attention of the Planning Commission. The master utility plan is driven by need, and as y'all are aware, we're also working on the strategic management plan for infrastructure for the county. So this particular plan is to help us identify where our water needs, other utility needs are in the county, and where the county wants to provide the services. And this, again, ties into, as we go forward with the comprehensive plan, one of the biggest things, of course, is future land use map. So, looking at the utility plan, where do we want to encourage development and growth, and how do we bring businesses in? The master utility plan is so that we can plan for that and figure out where. We have developed a preliminary, I'm trying to think of what I call it, a preliminary utilities map service area. That's what I was looking for, I apologize. We're looking at the service area, and I'll give you a verbal to give you a rough idea of what we're looking at. If you go 360 up to the King Queen line, that's one end of it. If you take 360 down to a little bit beyond Commerce Park, that's one end, that's the 360 stretch. Go out 30 to about Cuz Lane, where the Indian Upper Mattaponi have their tribal grounds. Right before that would be the extent that way on 30. And then a couple miles heading up towards Caroline on 30. Not very, 30 is not an area that we're anticipating much growth. But everything within that rough boundary, going down beyond, behind the Commerce Park, down behind Nestle, then up and around, and encompassing all of Ayler. Some of the needs that we're identifying in the master utility plan mostly have to do with the water supply, fire suppression, so that we can be able to fight fires if we need to, and provide water and sewer for commercial and residential in the area. And again, it's in the preliminary phases. But we have identified a need for additional water storage, probably 2 tanks. But again, preliminary, just looking at, well, our groundwater withdrawal permit still hasn't been approved by DEQ. It's only been a year, so that's, but we anticipate that it looks like we have plenty of water. The problem is being able to deliver enough of it fast enough to put out fire is one of the things. And so I don't think we'll have a problem with our withdrawal amount of water. We just need some more storage in some places. And then we're working with HRSD to identify, because if they had their way, everything would be hooked to them, period. But within this utilities area, we want to make sure that that is provided to. We want attractive to commercial, make it easier for people to do business here. And we also want to provide reliable water and sewer to new residents. We're looking at a fairly large amount of major subdivisions. A couple of multifamily have, and I'm kind of bleeding into my staff report at this point, but with the anticipated growth and the potential for things, this becomes very critical to the Boca comprehensive plan. And if y'all have any specific questions on this or want to get more involved in any way, just feel free to come see me or call, and I can go into more detail.
I have one comment, but I'll open up to you all first. Any questions or comments from Mr. Vedder on the master building plan? One of the many problems we had with the 2016 comp plan was inadequate information on water and sewer and a very outdated master utility plan. So this will be key, I think. The future land use map of the comprehensive plan can help guide this, and this can help guide that. The two of them should be totally in harmony. And I'm excited and glad that we updated. Thank you very much. Anything else on that topic?
You're working with the consultant?
A resource, Charlie, he did the original.
With this, are they going to develop costs?
Oh, yes. In fact, a big driver of this is so that the county can budget and plan, whether it be bond referendum. We need a lot of infrastructure. I mean, it really does boil down to that. And so the exercise isn't just, oh, this would be nice. This is so we can identify costs and figure out the best way to finance the work.
And once we've identified the capital improvements needed for the existing citizens and services and those coming in, we can also then revisit the proffer structure as well in terms of cash proffers for,
Can't do proffers anymore.
Notice I'm not saying anything at all.
You can't say
The
anything.
word proffer in residential is no longer a good topic for a planning
You
director.
can't suggest them, you can't do
Oh.
anything.
I can't even accidentally hear somebody saying they might offer us
It's
gas.
a voluntary,
It's-
it's a voluntary, I can't remember the terminology.
But it's gotten even worse. It can't be voluntary if I kind of hint at
I'm
that.
painfully
We're
aware,
saying,
I'm painfully aware of the strictures Joel somebody's put upon us. However, each new house does add additional services required, and we take that into account with the approval of any subdivisions.
with the subdivision, will we not expect the developer of the subdivision to provide water and sewer within that subdivision?
Yes, typically,
That's not a profit, that's a requirement.
yeah, well, if they want to sell the houses. Where it comes into play what the county provides as far as infrastructure and stuff, there's always that give and take. It's not so, it's them supplying water and sewer, there's connections, the ordinance says that if they are adjacent or have access to the sewer system or the water system, they have to hook up to it. That's how our ordinance is written. But of course, you get into what is, the HRSD and I sort of disagree on what is considered adjacent or close enough. Not disagree, but there's room to work there. And so as we go along, that's one of the infrastructure things that we have to address. But yes, anybody building a major, Tractor Supply had to provide, they actually put some T's in for us so that we could connect. But their portion they have to take care of. Same thing with the subdivision. As part of any development, they've got to put all the infrastructure in for the subdivision. Our job is to provide the public part of it.
The water facilities, the wells, the towers, so forth, will be owned by the county, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Just the water part. HRSD has sanitary.
And then the users will be charged for the water.
Yes, sir.
Same as a user will be charged for the sewer.
Yes, sir.
So that's the way we'll be paid back over time for installing the system.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit out of my depth as far as what the county plans to do, but as I understand it, yes, that is the funding mechanisms for that. We Well, July, we will be putting it out for bid. We're still moving forward with bringing in a consulting firm to produce that comprehensive plan document. As far as where we're heading and starting on that, master plan, the strategic plan. We're also in the process of starting to gather some demographics, but there's a census that should help us out a whole lot. But right now, we're still on track for July, for the next fiscal year.
Any other new business? You included a copy of, yes, Mr.
I was just wondering, I don't know, maybe you talk about maybe things that are coming to the county in the next section, or is that's enough?
I kind of bled over a little bit into the staff report.
Just asking about some developments.
I want to thank you all for the draft planning report. I've got a couple of editorial changes that I gave you all. I'll just give those to Ms. Cole. And then also, will you all have a total here, because I know that today's statistics, which we haven't got together for December, but you'll be attached to that, the year's statistics, is that correct?
As
the
far
December,
as.
the December reports.
You want the year to date? I think that is on the handout that you got.
Yeah, it should all be in.
Not in the
So,
packet.
but that will be included in that annual report that we'll give to the board of supervisors at their January meeting or February meeting.
I can, but that report is typically the building stuff. I guess I really wasn't aware that was
Yeah, that's on
included.
the planning and zoning and buildings are two separate departments.
Right.
And so, but if it's something you want included in it, we can get that documentation.
And anything your department is doing, again, the supervisors really give an understanding of what your department does, should they have a full report.
We'll include buildings with it. We'll make that.
Whatever you'd like them to see, the planning commission and your team did for the year is what I would like to see them see.
Okay.
That's okay. Y'all okay with that? Okay. All right, staff and or special committee reports, A, potential commercial projects. You're up for the rest of the night.
I'm going to steal Sherry's order. The first thing is commercial, correct? Right now, we don't have, it's just going through my head. Right now, we don't have any applications for commercial on the books. Calls about multifamily. There's a New York company that is actually looking in the county to put some multifamily housing in. I don't know how far that's going. But right now, everything's fairly quiet as far as the rumor mill, as far as any commercial coming
It's all that stuff next to public storage, they put in culverts and all sorts of stuff, they demolished all the
in.
wood.
That's Aled Mini Storage 2, and that's Stormore Expansion. Those are- And then across the street, Kennington is putting up 5, what are they calling those, warehouse structures? No, they have some other name that they're calling them. But basically, they're doing 5 warehouse, office type buildings on the other side, right across from where you're seeing. That's Aled Mini Storage 2 that you're seeing all the activity on that part of Kennington. On the other side of Stormore is where they're expanding. So that's just going to be one long row of all the extra space you could possibly want. Because we just got, I think it was last week, I think Aled got their DEQ permit complete. Stormore, we're waiting for responses back, but those are existing, yes. You can see the number of zoning permits in your handouts, violation logs, and the land disturbance report. Again, if there's anything in particular you want to know, be happy to answer any questions, but those are just statistics. Yeah, as usual, we've seen a lot of activity. There's you expect during hunting season and at the holidays that we would slow down on all the new starts and everything, but that really hasn't been the case. It's been pretty busy. And rarely, you seen a slow down, Sherry?
Maybe for about a week.
But if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Are we up to item number 9?
Oh, yes, item 9, that's you.
Before we do that, any final comments from anybody? It's not item. Go ahead.
You weren't gonna go over the report, you were gonna do some editorials.
Oh, the only thing that I have, in the report itself, moving forward, talking about the zoning ordinance, should it say zoning and subdivision ordinance? Would that make sense? Or is zoning sufficient? And then the following sentence, there will be public hearings and board of supervisor input prior to finalization of the document. Won't there be public meetings and the joint meeting of board of supervisors and then public hearings prior to finalization of the document? Is that more accurately describing the next steps to get to that finish line? So instead of saying there will be public hearings and board of supervisor input, do we want to expand it to say there will be public meetings public meeting prior to the public hearings, and also, again, it goes back to the next steps to get to that finish line.
Yeah, and obviously, this is, y'all's document, would be more than happy to add to whatever y'all want.
Well, again, if you think this adequately describes for the board of
Oh, no, I
supervisors
think-
next steps, then I'm fine with that as is. If you think it needs a little more tightening, I would appreciate y'all doing that. Would you be able to get it to the January meeting, or? And that's all I have. All right, any other old or new business? If not, any final comments before we adjourn?
Thank you all for coming in. I look forward to working with all of you and staff who's coming here, and I look forward to prosperous news. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you, John, for being on our
Thank you.
for this year. All the stuff you've done, organizing the meetings, getting everything in order for us all.
I appreciate you saying that. And again, I've been happy serving in the future, but I thought it was time for Mr. Wagner. I'd like to thank staff for the good work they did for us this year. I'd like to thank the folks for coming out. I look forward to working with those supervisors in the audience as well as the ones who are not here tonight. And finally, I do want to thank the four of you all. You've been wonderful working, and I thank you for the opportunity to serve as your chair, and look forward to serving under Mr. Wagner next year. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion to adjourn? We have a second? Got a second? All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.